And now, Reaching Out with Gregory Floyd, the president of Teamsters Local 237.
Welcome to another edition of Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, president Local 237 Teamsters. With me, very special guest, Frank Rella. Frank Rella is a business agent working with Local 237, representing school safety and also the Taxi Limousine Commission. He was hired by School Safety in September 1990. He left and then became a taxi limousine inspector. Then he went to the New York City Police Department. He achieved the rank of sergeant, and he worked in the police academy. So he has had a wide range career in law enforcement. And Frank, welcome to Reaching Out.
Thank you very much.
Now, we want to talk about the Taxi Limousine Commission.
Okay.
We want to talk about the recent attacks on taxi limousine inspectors by Liberty cab drivers. Can we talk about the latest attack, the one where the windshield was broken out?
Yeah, absolutely. The officers were doing a car stop of a driver up in the Bronx, University Place, and they pulled the vehicle over. And while they had pulled him over, they were surrounded by a bunch of drivers, or we assume are drivers at this point, based upon the audio and the tape. They were screaming and yelling at them, degrading them. The officers, thank God, had enough common sense not to engage with the crowd. They removed themselves to the situation. They brought themselves back inside the car, and they had called for another vehicle, another car to come up back up. And while they were doing that, you could hear the people screaming and yelling at them, and then somebody took out a baseball bat and broke the front windshield, broke the back window, and then broke a side window on the car. At this point, the driver of the person they stopped, the car that they had stopped, who was not involved in this, from what I understand, had moved away. That created an exit for these officers to get out of there. Otherwise, things could have gone a lot worse, become horribly worse, actually.
Now, do you remember the date that this happened? A couple of weeks ago.
It was 2 Wednesdays or 2 Thursdays ago, if I remember correctly.
And this received a lot of media coverage, and I believe the video is definitely on YouTube.
The video is on YouTube.
We can hear the drivers or the crowd saying that the inspectors, they're unarmed.
Yes. You hear them yelling, they're unarmed, they're nothing, they're not even Boy Scouts. Don't be afraid of them, there's nothing you could do. And towards the very end, when they drive away to escape the situation, you hear them yelling at them, come back here, we're not done, I believe is what, because I had somebody translate it for me. Come back here. So,
do they have a description? Do they know how many people that they want to charge with this crime, and do they have a description of the people involved?
Yes, they have 3 pictures of the people that they believe are involved, and it was 3 men, 3 different people. They have a picture of it. I do know that the officers removed themselves to the precinct. All the reports were made, police reports were made, and right now they are searching for these 3 people. Like I said, this is on YouTube, and it's one of many videos you can actually find on YouTube about Taxi Limousine Commission inspectors, officers. I was just recently viewing one where a driver just sat there. It was very eerie because he just sat in a car and was videotaping everything they did, and it was just complete silence. And you can see the officers were very professional in what they did. They approached the car, they went back to their car, but they're being watched by these drivers in every single thing they do. The drivers are speaking, they're organizing, I guess, for lack of a better term right now, and it's making the officers very nervous.
Now tell me, how did they identify the 3 individuals?
The photos from the YouTube video, they took stills from that.
Okay, and they still haven't caught the person to this day?
To the best of my knowledge, as of right now, no, they did not catch anybody.
Well, we're going to make available to the public these pictures.
That'd be fantastic.
And we're also, we Local 237 Teamsters, we're also going to post a $10,000 reward per perpetrator for an arrest and conviction. That's up to $30,000, $10,000 a head. for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of these 3 individuals.
That's great. That hopefully will go a long way in getting these people.
So we're going to get that out to the public. We're going to make it available. We want these individuals caught, and we want the threats to stop to the taxi limousine inspectors, because they are enforcing the rules and regulations that the City of New York and the Taxi Limousine Commission give them. If the drivers have a problem with it, which we know they have a problem, there's a hearing coming up next week, and there's a commission, and there's the mayor. You take it up with the mayor. The individuals that are working for the City of New York are going to feed their families, going to work to feed their families like everybody else, and they deserve to be treated with respect, not disrespect, and we will not tolerate it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Now, car stops are some of the most dangerous things you could do in law enforcement.
Correct. It's statistically, this was an FBI thing out a couple of years ago, the last one that I checked, and it is one of the top most dangerous things. Domestic disputes and car stops flip-flop as the number one problem. One will be one next year will be the other, but it's one of the most dangerous things. As you're approaching a car, you have no idea what is going on in that vehicle, what is going on in this driver's head. You don't know where he was 5 minutes ago. Did he just leave a nice dinner and having a good time? He's in a happy mood. Or did he just commit another crime that he thinks you're stopping him for? Did he just beat his wife? Did he rob a bank? Or any thousands of different scenarios you could come up with, and you have no idea what his mindset is. Additionally, now for TLC, the officers, they're coming up on a cab that you don't know what the passengers have just done. So now you have the driver that you got to worry about what their mindset is, and you also have to worry about the passengers in the back seat. They may have just committed the crime. So they may be sitting there not knowing that you are there for a TLC infraction, and they're sitting there going, oh God, here comes the cops, and I could be going to jail, when the inspectors have nothing to do with that. They're just looking to enforce the rules that Tax and Limousine Commission has put forth. So you're approaching this car, and they approach this car with nothing. They have a AS baton, which is a expandable baton, and pepper spray. No sidearm to protect themselves with. God forbid this becomes a more dangerous confrontation.
But they can make arrests.
They have complete arrest powers, yes, sir.
Now, in addition to Liberty cabs, they also have van enforcement. Tell us about the van enforcement and the areas that they have to go to.
Van enforcement it's even more dangerous because historically van drivers do not drive by themselves. They have their money man in the car, and they found in the past a lot of these money men are armed with either a sidearm, possibly a firearm, a knife, a bat, a billy club. So they're not approaching a vehicle with just one driver. It's the driver and their money man, their strong arm man, to make sure that the people in the van pay them. And then, of course, instead of having possibly 1 or 2 people in the back seat, you have a van that fits up to 10 people. So now you're engaging a van with possibly up to 10, 12 people in it. You're at a huge disadvantage when you stop a van or a truck. With a car, as you walk over, the window's about waist high. You could look down, you could see what the hands are doing, what people are doing with their hands in a car. You could get a quick view into there. When you're approaching a van, the window's typically chest high, maybe even a little higher, depending on what type of van it is. I have no idea what you're holding underneath that door, what's in your lap, what the people in the back are doing, what the person next to you is doing. So it becomes even more dangerous. And the danger just, becomes a lot higher for that.
Now, traditionally, the tax limousine inspectors did not do van stops. When did they come about to do van stops? A few years ago. And they used to do that in conjunction with the police department.
Correct. They were doing joint operations with the PD. At one point, they would go to a precinct. They would prearrange it. The precinct would provide a few officers. Some of them would sit in the car with the Tax Limousine Commission officers. They'd pull over a car. The officer would approach the car, and then the TLC officers would come over there, and they would do their enforcement from that point.
And now the police department has been totally taken out of the picture.
It's been downgraded, yes. They started a new thing. They tried what's called a surge recently, where they put a whole bunch of tax and limousine commission, and PD went up and down, but they weren't assigned specifically to a car. They were just generally in the area. They would try to do it that way, but it's nice to hear. But when you're on patrol and you're assigned to, let's say I'm assigned to this taxi limousine commission surge, but then something comes over my radio, I got to go. I'm not sitting in the car with the taxi limousine commission officer where I could just say I can't go because I have no way of getting there. I'm in my RMP. I'm going to go, and now these officers from TLC are left by themselves again. So it's just as good as not having anybody there.
And because of that, they've been assaulted.
Tax Limousine Commission, I mean, going back to, as you said, I worked from Tax Limousine Commission. I started with them in '92. I was there for about a year and a half. They were always assaulted. They were always chased. I had people that I knew that were chased with bats, chased with machetes, chased with knives. They were yelled at, screamed at, spit on. There was zero respect for the officers.
And tax limousine, they don't only do enforcements; they also do the inspection of the cabs.
Yes.
In that industry. Tell us how that goes.
In Woodside, there's I believe it's 6 or 8 lanes, and there's a bunch of stations on each lane. The vehicle has to come there, and it has to pass a certain standard in order to be licensed. So they would come in, and they see a ton of cars a day, a couple of hundred cars a day. It's just a complete, factory. It's moving. The guys in the inspections part, they really work their rear off because they have such a high volume there. A car would pull in, they check everything from under the hood to inside the car to outside the car, as far as to see how deep the tint is on the windows. Now the vehicle has to pass inspection there in order to be licensed and allowed to be on the street. If they don't, they're given a notice of correction. Then they were given a certain amount of time to go out, correct this, and then they could come back. And if they made their corrections, then they'll be licensed.
You're listening to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President, Local 237 Teamsters. With me is Frank Rella. He is a business agent, Local 237, also a former school safety agent and taxi limousine inspector, as well as a retired police sergeant from the NYPD and the police academy.
Reaching Out with Gregory Floyd, the president of Teamsters Local 237.